What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, and today we've got a video for you that was a snippet of a larger conversation we had last night on our live show, talking about some recent comments that Alex Verdugo, former Dodger prospect, made related to the Mookie Betts trade. And let's just say it was kind of a wild comment that he made. So here's a conversation between myself, our managing editor, Matthew Moreno, and then our DodgerBlue.com contributor, AJ Gonzalez, and what we thought about Verdugo's comments, as well as just the narrative around that trade in general. So enjoy this video, and thanks for watching. Let's talk Alex Verdugo briefly, and maybe not so briefly, because I think this kind of warrants a bigger conversation. For those unfamiliar, the Dodgers, of course, were in Boston this past weekend, the site of maybe one of the more lopsided trades in Major League history, when the Red Sox sent Mookie Betts to the Dodgers in exchange for Alex Verdugo, who at the time was a top 50 to 75 prospect in Major League Baseball and was already at the Major League level, Jeter Downs, who was a top 100 prospect, and Connor Wong, who was kind of a throw-in to the trade. The Dodgers got Mookie Betts as well as David Price's contract. Mookie Betts, as we talked earlier and have talked multiple times on the show, is the leading candidate for MVP right now. Meanwhile, Alex Verdugo is a slightly above average offensive player who has a questionable reputation in clubhouses, and that's where we're at. Why we bring all of this up is because Alex Verdugo had a quote that I would say is a quote for the ages. He did hit 2 home runs in this series. He led off Friday and Saturday with home runs, so I'll give him that credit. But this is what he said when asked about the trade. Quote, "It ain't as washed of a trade as what people try to always make it seem." That was end quote from Verdugo. It ain't as washed of a trade as what people try to always make it seem. It's worth noting Jeter Downs, who is the second top 100 prospect included, was recently DFA'd by the Red Sox, claimed by the Nationals, and has since been optioned to AAA by them. Connor Wong is a 89 weighted runs created plus catcher who's solid defensively. So sure, one-win player, Connor Wong. AJ, I'll come to you first. He says this trade wasn't that bad. Mookie Betts, again, currently the favorite for MVP. Alex Verdugo, a slightly above average offensive player who has been benched twice this year.
I think Matt is going to have the more solid, subsistent, based on facts answer. I will just give a little bit of Dodger trivia. I don't know if you guys remember when Doogie was on the Dodgers, he used Volver, Volver as his walk-up song. I mean, let's just say it's like one of the Mexican national anthems. Like when that song comes on, everyone in my family, myself included, we start singing. We start. Let me tell you the chorus if I were translated to English. And going back to your arms once again. I know I'll get back to where you are. I know how to lose. I know how to lose. I want to go back. I want to go back. That's Verdugo, and I think I'm done here.
Matt, any song lyrics for us?
No song lyrics. I left that to AJ. I can understand where Verdugo's coming from as like a competitor standpoint. Like, you don't want to always hear like, hey, you were part of a terrible trade. Like the team you're on, like just got fleeced. So I get the sentiment. I just think that objectively looking at it, like it was an awful trade for the Red Sox. Yeah. And if we want to take things a step further, remember it was supposed to be a 3-team trade with the Twins, Dodgers, and Red Sox, with Brusdar Graterol going to Boston originally. Yeah. And I forgot all the specifics of that trade, but what I do remember is the Red Sox were getting crushed by every national media, everybody. How is that the return for Mookie Betts? And, David Price, whatever you think of him at the time, like he was still a name. And so then it fell apart because remember, like the Red Sox claimed, we have some concerns about Graterol's medical history, this, that, and the other. So that the 3-team trade fell apart. The Dodgers end up saying, okay, give us Graterol. They end up doing the 2 separate trades.
Yeah.
And even at the time, it just wasn't the rework deal still was obviously tilted in favor of the Dodgers. And that's how, most trades are whenever prospects are involved, right? Like the team acquiring a prospect, like you are sort of banking on their potential and what you hope they'll become. And that doesn't always happen. Like we just talked about with Michael Busch. Like sometimes these top prospects are great in the minor leagues and they just don't pan out. Verdugo is a solid player at the major league level. But we're talking about, Mookie Betts, who was not even just like a perennial all-star. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And he's going to go down as one of the best players that the game has ever seen. And so unless, again, objectively speaking, you're producing at that level or close to it, like the trade, especially when the complementary pieces, as you highlighted, Jeter Downs is no longer there. Connor Wong is a bench player. They're not, upholding their end of the bargain necessarily. They didn't pan out. So it basically does look at like Verdugo for Mookie Betts. And when you put their stats next to each other, like objectively speaking, like it answers the question.
Yeah. What Verdugo needs to realize, and I understand as a competitor why you won't be able to say this, like, even if Alex Verdugo were a fringe all-star, this would be a total like what he would need to be as a player for this to be an accurate statement that this trade isn't washed is like 4 times the player that he currently is. Like the number of guys who could get traded straight up for Mookie Betts, and this would be true, it ain't as washed of a trade as what people try to always make it seem, is like there's probably 25 dudes in all of Major League Baseball that like, and again, I'm saying because, oh, well, he's a young guy and you don't have to pay him and he's team control, like that kind of stuff. So I understand why he perceives it as an insult, and it is partly due to him. But realistically, people bashing the trade has way more to do with Jeter Downs being a zero, not even with the organization. I mean, obviously, Verdugo is underperforming. But if I were Verdugo, every single day I'd be telling myself, hey, it ain't my problem. Like, I'm still here at the Major League level. I've got a 110 rated runs created plus. Like, I still have some upside. I'm still here for a few more years. So if you want to bash the trade, like, A, I didn't make it. B, I'm like 75% of what was expected of me. Like I'm not a total zero. So I think that's the part that I laugh about. Like I just wouldn't take it personally. I'd be like, yeah, that trade sucked. And man, Jeter Downs sucks, huh? Like that guy should have been better. That kind of thing. AJ, do you want to add to that?
No, I think you guys nailed it. Like Verdugo's fine. Like you said, he's got an ops plus of like 113, which is the highest of his career in a full season anyway. I felt like my comment was, meant to be sort of poetic and funny, but like he's a good player.
Yeah.
Jeter Downs has been disappointing, but we're talking about Mookie Betts. They traded him because they didn't want to pay him. They got rid of David Price because they didn't want him on their payroll so that they could reset. They just traded him because they didn't want to pay him. And of course, Verdugo is going to feel like this. That's inevitable.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think another thing too is as much as like I am making some, I guess you could say some excuse for Verdugo a little bit, but also like he does need to take some ownership for there were some maturity issues while he was here with the Dodgers. And like you mentioned, he's also been benched twice with Boston. Yep. And so like those are your actions. That's stuff that like you've kind of created a perception of yourself because of how you've behaved. And so, I liked him when he was with the Dodgers. I thought, he is talented. He is a talented baseball player. And I think he could continue to develop. Like his career isn't done. But again, short of Verdugo, like morphing into a perennial all-star, superstar type player, like this trade is forever going to be viewed as skewed heavily in the Dodgers' favor, especially when you layer on the fact that they then won the World Series in Mookie Betts' first season with the team and kind of the important role, the memorable highlights that he played in that. Like, it wasn't like he was just, along for the ride.
Yeah. So Verdugo, since coming to Boston, 2020 was the first year. So that was a shortened season. And obviously we haven't finished this year. So let's just call it 3 full seasons. It's slightly more than 3 seasons, but 3 full seasons since Verdugo has been at Boston. And he's played, 53 out of 60 games, 146 out of 162, 152, 117. So he has been healthy. In all of those seasons, he has combined, according to Fangraphs, for 7.6 wins above replacement in 3 full seasons. Right now, this season, Mookie Betts has 7.1 in 122 games. So, we could go backwards. There was a 6.6 put up by Mookie last year and a 3.9 the year before that, and 2.8 the year before that. So, that's a tough one for Verdugo to wear. But, again, to say that trade is not washed when Mookie Betts this year has basically put up the same amount of value that Verdugo has put up in 3+ seasons total. And last year, Mookie had 6.6. I think we can all agree, and Matt, maybe you're a little hesitant to say this, like, this quote is crazy. Like, this trade ain't as washed of a trade as what people try to always make it seem. Matt, I would argue this trade is more washed of a trade than maybe anybody realizes, because I don't think most people realize that Jeter Downs was the second biggest piece and has been DFA'd by the Red Sox. Like I think this trade is far worse. And people are going to say, oh, the Dodgers took some Price's contract. Oh, they didn't know they were going to re-sign Mookie. Sure. But here we are. They did re-sign Mookie. And David Price, they paid him. It's more watching of a trade than I think. Like, I still have people in my life who defend this trade. Oh, that he wasn't going to sign. Well, like, it's more watched of a trade than I think it actually gets credit for.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I definitely think the Jeter Downs detail, I had forgotten that he was. I remember when it happened, seeing that he was no longer with the Red Sox organization, but I had forgotten until reading about Verdugo's comments and then looking back on the trade and stuff that, oh, like, yeah, that's right. He ended up with the Nationals. Now he's not even on their Major League roster right now. I think, honestly, it's the biggest indictment on the Red Sox franchise and their front office.
Yeah.
You know, with Mookie going back to Boston this past weekend, like it kind of brought up the contract negotiation stuff again, and he really sidestepped. He said, you know, I don't want to discuss it if Chaim Bloom or the Red Sox owner want to, like, they can, but I'll just leave it at that. So I know there's a lot of consternation on how those negotiations went, maybe what was offered, how much was offered, was it offered? But I think really, like, it's an indictment on the Red Sox, right? Like, again, Verdugo, like you said, like, he could look at the rest of the trade pieces and say, hey, I'm doing my part. Like, where's everybody else? But ultimately, the Red Sox front office, they didn't get enough.
Yeah. Short
of, you know, again, like, even if Verdugo had maybe panned out a little bit more, like, what were the odds that Jeter Downs and or Connor Wong were also going to be, you know, all-star level players? And so that's probably where the majority of the blame, I think, falls and has sort of gone. But again, like, I understand why, you know, Verdugo, he gets asked about it because he was the centerpiece.
He's the only guy left.
And he's the only guy left. Yeah.
Yeah. No disrespect to Connor Wong. But hey, there you go. Shout out to the Dodgers. Andrew Friedman, always winning.